Good to go. So look, thanks everyone for joining. Again, great to see so many people here tonight. We have a great presentation on some unique data that's going to be, Jeremy and the team have been researching UK preferences. So before we jump into that, I'd really like to introduce our esteemed guest.
Hi everyone, I'm Anirudh. I kind of in between two roles, but I used to work at Uber, leading the payment experience for both the spender side when you are paying anything on the platform, like ordering rides or food, and also our owner experience. So whenever you basically own on the platform, we obviously want to get paid out for that. So leading the entire spender and owner experience across all our verticals and geos.
Brilliant, thank you. So I forgot to introduce myself last time. So my name's Kieran O'Malley. I run the partnerships side of the business. I've been at Trusty for 5 years across strategy and now partnerships. So look, we're delighted without any further ado to bring you into some of this data. So what we're going to talk about today is why do instant refunds matter. And as with all of these Trusty presentations, there is some audience participation, which we love, okay? So ladies and gentlemen, there are 4 options here of what you think was the most refunded, the largest driver of refunds over the last 12 months. So perhaps we'll start with a show of hands for airlines, airline tickets. Oh, everyone's thinking airline tickets were not driving refunds. Hotels perhaps. Jeremy and Dean, we've got a couple in the room. Technology. Andres. Okay. And finally, clothes and accessories. Here we go. Okay. Well, we have some pretty bright people in the room because, as you can see, yes, clothes and accessories are driving refunds. And I think from our perspective, this is really interesting because clearly the airline sector and the hotel sector saw huge disruption in the last 12 months. But actually, it was those clothes and those accessories that are still going to be moving forward in the next 12 months, 18 months, however long, that drove the refunding experience. 2 other points that came across in our data that I think are quite interesting. We saw a 20% return rate on technology and a 20% return rate on gardens. And clearly everyone has turned to gardening in the COVID world, but still it was driving quite a high refund area. So perhaps people just got bored of gardening and have refunded everything, but we'll assume that will continue. So what are we actually talking about? So we have some brilliant data that we've sourced only 2 weeks ago. 2,600 approximately British customers, and we asked them all about their refund experience. So that's what we're going to share with you today, and of course, some thoughts from the industry as well. So, a question. Refund average value, what do you think?
30 euros, 30 to 50 euros.
30 to 50 euros. Any other thoughts? The average values? 70 we have in the audience. Well, let's see. So, 38% of the refund values were in that 21 to 50 pounds range. Again, you've seen the data. But at a higher level here, 25% are reaching up to 250 pounds. So this is some serious numbers. And if you look at the set we're looking at here, we've got 2,500 consumers. Those that had refunds, you're talking about £50,000 being held up in refunds. So a small data set, but a serious amount of money. Again, customer impacts, what do we think? Well, first off, the data is going to reveal that. So we have some really, I think, worrying data here. We've found that 1/3 of customers were unable to actually pay bills and mortgage because they didn't have the funds from a refund. Now, surely from a product perspective, that's really quite an impactful experience.
No, absolutely. Like if you imagine you are buying a flight ticket or you're going on a holiday, right? And then it's like, there tends to be big ticket items, and it tends to be obviously like a big part of your savings. And if that gets blocked for a certain amount of time, and if it's not instant, it actually ruins the customer experience and has a very bad experience with the brand itself, right? So for big ticket items, I think like instant refunds is absolutely key. It's like it's a no-brainer. You should absolutely have it. Even for small ticket items, like even at Uber, we do see it is quite important because like it just like in certain cohorts we have like high cancellation rate, and in that time like you just want to refund immediately because you want to have like a good customer experience. So for high ticket items, absolutely, and I would say even for low ticket items, I think it is very key to a good customer experience.
Usually, and I guess we saw that in the data with the different proportions. And I think looking at this data as well, you're seeing a real concentration of need in the younger demographic. I think this is really important, right? They don't necessarily have the savings, but they still they are being impacted by not having those refunds in. And finally, again, worrying too, we're seeing that a third of 18 to 24-year-olds are actually unable to pay for food, which, again, this is really impacting people's day-to-day lives. And it's something that perhaps is forgotten in the payment ecosystem.
I mean, one thing you can think about is, buy now, pay later, right? That's like an amazing solution, I would say, in these cases.
It's a really important point, right? Here, a buy now, pay later solution may seem like an easy way to avoid this problem, and not avoid that problem. It may seem like a really easy way to avoid this problem of customers not having funds, but as we can see from research we've done recently, 64% of customers prefer debit in Europe. And in the UK, that's as high as 71%. So you're not satisfying the need with a buy now, pay later solution. So what do customers want? Well, again, from a product perspective, what do you think? What's the key driver here?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, I think like key driver is for big purchases, you absolutely want to have that refunds coming in as soon as possible. And as for merchants as well, I think like when we do evaluate different payment methods and different payment solutions over there, we actually don't implement certain payment methods and solutions if they don't actually support instant refunds. And in certain cases, the cost of customer support is so high because obviously you have cancellation, you have fare changing at the end of the trip, right? So the cost of customer support is just so high and the churn rate is so much higher, we actually don't even actually go ahead with the certain payment solutions. So I think those two things combined together, I think like refunds is absolutely key.
Yeah, it's an incomplete solution. And I think what we can see from the data is that actually slow refunds make it so hard to plan, whether it's across the spectrum. And I guess as you were saying before, that really affects the customer experience of the brand. You're trying to protect the Uber brand, and yet this little part of the payment experience is damaging that. So again,
yeah, I think like having that trust is incredibly important, right? And whenever you are holding someone's funds and money for an extended period of time, you actually erode that trust. Yes, I think trust is very important to keep with your customers, as we're hearing through the conference, right?
Definitely. And again, talking back on the merchant side of things, so we've talked about the downside, we've talked about the challenges that there are, and our data really reflects this. So we're seeing 6 out of 10 customers are more likely to spend if instant refunds are offered. That's huge. 6 out of 10. Where else in the e-commerce world can you drive that kind of uplift with something that is, again, seemingly so essential? This isn't rocket science. Hard to deliver, but it's not rocket science. And then one thing that is quite important to us, and you just mentioned it around evaluating payment methods, very few people are actually experiencing instant refunds today. Right? 11%. It's almost shamefully low.
Yeah, that number is like shocking, just given that I know instant refunds is so important for our customers and for that experience. It's actually very shocking that it's so low.
I think we might quote that and put it on our outside the Chelsea building. It is shocking to have that little instant refund experience. Really crucial. Now, to your point before, support. I guess at Uber it's so important to make sure the support is sharp and really sort of driving a positive brand experience, but surely it's quite costly.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, like in certain cohorts, we have like incredibly high cancellation rate just because of marketplace dynamics, etc. And then obviously, like a typical Uber ride, the final amount is sort of like not known for till the end of the trip. Obviously, we have an estimation, but it actually does change. And in both these situations, it's incredibly important that we are able to charge the right amount and we are able to refund, especially in the cancellation rate, right? And in certain markets or in certain payment methods, like it's so slow that we actually don't go ahead with this payment solution. And when we do, we have seen results that the cost of customer support is incredibly high. And we actually just because the cost is so high, we actually don't go with the solutions.
It's such an interesting point, and I think one of the things in the payments industry is we really talk about direct costs a lot. We really think about what is the cost per transaction, and we're not thinking about the fact that actually there is a cost in the background of support. If that refund is delayed, the cost that you have through that slow refund experience may be 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times the cost of the underlying payment method. So we've seen this across various different pieces of research. This particular case was done just at the beginning of last year, where we had 27% of support cases being driven by slow refunds. So you implement Trustly here, you eliminate 27% of refunds, of support cases as a result of this. It's a pretty compelling business case.
Yeah, I mean, at Uber as well, we really struggle with, I think the number one category as well is where is my money? What happened to my money? Why am I not refunded, right? So it is incredibly important for us to have that frictionless payment experience, and instant refunds is definitely a key unblocker for that.
Brilliant. And I think it's really clear, so why does it matter? Well, from our perspective, from a customer, we've seen that some people can't pay their bills and they can't eat, which is a terrible state of affairs for us as an industry to be not supporting people in that way. So from a customer perspective, this is critical. But from a merchant perspective, it's really clear from the data we have that not only are they driving up their costs with higher support rates, but they're also missing out on that 60% of customers who would spend more. So looking at this data and looking at our experiences with brilliant merchants such as Uber and in the Nordics, we have a huge array of partners who really talk to us about this on a regular basis. We know that this is something that is crucial, but it's something that we can solve. And I think from that perspective, it's almost our mission to change that 11% that we saw before into a 99% of customers experiencing an instant refund.
Yes, absolutely. I think, even with when I'm evaluating different payment methods, if instant refunds is not part of the solution, obviously we do evaluate the penetration in the market and how feasible and how actually useful it is for the customer, right? But that is extremely key element, and then it is actually incredibly beneficial for consumer and obviously thus for the merchant.
Brilliant. Well, if there's no questions or any thoughts on this, we'll wrap up here today. But I think the key message to be left with is that instant refunds not only drive lower total costs, but also can drive the top line across the merchant spectrum. I think that's a really important thing to take away, as well as finally protecting your brand through this product. Make sure that customer experience is brilliant. Thank you.